Who was Methuselah? We read about him in the Old Testament. He was a man who allegedly lived for 969 years. Methuselah was Noah's grandfather, Noah of the great flood, the deluge. And he's considered the man with one of the longest lifespans in history. It's said that he lived for 969 years until the great flood swept across the land. But not only is this biblical character fascinating for his longevity, he's also very important for a number of other reasons. According to Genesis of the Old Testament, Methuselah was the 8th antediluvian patriarch, son of Enoch, father of Lamech, and grandfather of Noah, who was the last of these patriarchs. The following is taken from the King James Version of the Bible. And Enoch lived 65 years and begat Methuselah. And Enoch walked with God after he begat Methuselah 300 years and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Enoch were 365 years. And Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. And Methuselah lived 187 years and begat Lamech. And Methuselah lived after he begat Lamech 782 years and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and he died. This is according to Genesis 5, verse 21 to 27. Methuselah is mentioned in Genesis as the son of Enoch and father of Lamech, who in turn was the father of Noah, whom he fathered at 187 years of age. His name has become a general synonym applied to an elderly person, used in phrases such as having more years than Methuselah or being older than Methuselah. A careful reading of the Old Testament reveals that Methuselah reportedly died in the year of the Great Flood. So all these patriarchs died before the flood. They didn't see the catastrophe, but Noah was saved and his 3 sons, Noah's wife and the wives of his 3 sons. Now, the manuscript says the Mesoteric, the Septuagint, and the Samaritan Torah offer different timelines. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box. If we take a look at the Mesoteric, an authoritative Hebrew and Aramaic text of the Tanakh for Rabbinic Judaism, was 187 years when his son was born. He died the year of the flood at the age of 969 years. The Septuagint, sometimes referred to as the Greek Old Testament, the earliest extant Greek translation of the Old Testament from the original Hebrew, indicates how Methuselah was 187 years when his son was born, and he died at the age of 969, but 6 years before the Great Flood. According to the Samaritan Torah, a text of the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible, written in the Samaritan alphabet and used as scripture by the Samaritans, Methuselah was 69 years old when his son was born, and he died at the age of 720 years, the year of the Great Flood took place. So these discrepancies in ancient texts have been explained in a number of ways, the most obvious one being the accidental corruption by copyists and translators. Some errors may be the result of attempts to correct previous errors. But despite the fact that there are discrepancies in the dates, one thing remains the same. Methuselah lived beyond the life expectancy of ordinary humans. So what does that make him? Was Methuselah perhaps not human? How on earth is it possible that someone can live for 969 years? It shouldn't be possible. Well, we know that they had longevity before the Great Flood. And they never had a rainbow before the Great Flood. So something has changed in the atmosphere, in the water cycle, in the sun's intensity. Earth changes, who knows? A lot of things did take place that were not normal before the Great Flood. Now, if we take a look at another ancient text, the ancient Sumerian king list, we find plenty of historic evidence of kings living on earth for tens of thousands of years. And if we take a look at the Sumerian king list, we'll see that it clearly states quote, after the kingship descended from heaven. The kingship was in Eridu. In Eridu, Alulim became king. He ruled for 28,800 years. Al-Aljar ruled for 36,000 years. Two kings, they ruled for 64,800 years. Can you imagine? The Sumerian king list describes 8 kings who ruled over the earth for a total of 241,200 years, since the original kingship had descended from heaven, quote unquote, all the way to the time of the Great Flood, which swept over the land, and once more the kingship was lowered from heaven after the flood. So there we see different historical sources describing people, quote unquote, actually living on earth for hundreds and even thousands of years, but ordinary humans cannot live that long. According to James W. Vopal, an American scientist in the fields of aging research, biodemography, and formal demography, life expectancy began to increase in 1840 with the decrease in infant mortality and adolescent mortality, and it has continued to rise in the average increase of 2.5 years each decade. That's because, of course, of better medical technology. Now, Vopal's research shows that life expectancy is likely to increase well beyond the purported limit of 85 years, but 85 is still a long way from 969 years of life. Our current knowledge about the lifespan of a cell leads us to suppose that the natural limit of longevity in the human being is below 150 years. The Guinness record for the longest human lifespan is that of Jean Calment of France, who lived between 1875 and 1997, who lived at the age of 122 years and 164 days. Some authors believe that human beings lived close to 1,000 years until after the flood. God shortened this age, according to Genesis 6:3. And then the Lord said, my spirit shall not strive with man forever, because he also is flesh. Nevertheless, his days shall be 120 years. But was it really an act of God, the fact that human lifespan was shortened? Or is it possible that there is another more extravagant explanation, one that suggests that the days of Methuselah, beings not from earth, walked on our planet? This is according to ancient code on Humans Are Free. So all these patriarchs before the flood were, of course, to culminate to Noah, the man of good omen. Noah in the Jewish Bible, Devkalion in the ancient Greek, meaning man of good omen. Devkalos ionos. Ionos means omen. Kalos means good. Dev means come, the coming of the good omen. The son of, in ancient Greek, he was supposedly the son of Prometheus and Pronia in Greek mythology. And like Noah, Devkalion is warned of the flood. He builds an ark and staffs it with creatures. When he completes his voyage, gives thanks and takes advice from the gods on how to repopulate the earth. He also sends a pigeon to find out about the situation of the world, and the bird returns with an olive branch. And Devkalion, in some versions of the myth, also becomes the inventor of wine, like Noah. The motive of weather deity who headed the pantheon caused the great flood, and then the trickster who created man from clay, saving man, is also present in Sumerian mythology as Enlil instead of Zeus, causes the flood, and Enki rather than Prometheus saves him. So Noah, according to documentary hypothesis, in the Pentateuch Torah, including Genesis, were collated during the 5th century BC from 4 main sources. Themselves date no earlier than 10th century BC, about 1,000 years BC. Now, how long did Noah live? He lived until 950 years. At the age of 950, Noah, who shepherded God's creatures through the flood, died, and he left behind 3 sons, from whom the human race descends, according to the Bible. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support.